All right, once again, Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and all praise to the Most High, Ahaya, Bahashem Yeshaya, our Lord and our Savior. So, like I said, the title of today's lesson is called A In-Depth Look into 70 AD. Okay, like I explained earlier, we need to go into and have the history of what was actually taking place in our land or in Israel right around the time before we was taken out by the Romans, right? So Christ foretold of this happening to us in 70 AD. Okay, Christ gave us a prophecy. He gave us a warning. Okay, and we're gonna by the end of this lesson, you guys are gonna understand that those who took heed to Christ's prophecy didn't face what we're gonna go into later on in as far as history. Okay, those who took heed of Christ's prophecy was out of there. They didn't stick around to see what would happen to the land of Israel. Okay, so let's go into the book of Luke, right? Luke, the 21st chapter, and we're gonna take it at verse 20. So this prophecy, Christ foretells of Jerusalem being taken down by the Gentiles, because at this time, the children of Israel, they was in the land. Majority of the children of Israel was scattered. The 10 tribes was already scattered already in the new land, which is called America. But the three southern kingdom tribes that was still in the land, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, okay, was still in the kingdom, was still in Israel. Okay, and there was things that was going to take place according to Christ's prophecy that the children of Israel would have to face. And this is what we talk about happening during 70 AD, right? Like I said earlier, many times you may hear us talk about what happened in 70 AD, or we tell you to do the research on what happened in 70 AD. But today we're going to do an in-depth lesson on what was really taking place in 70 AD. We're going to go into history books, and don't worry about the books. We'll show you what books we're going into. And at the end of this message or the lesson, you could probably order it yourself, or there's probably PDFs online where you could find these records. So let's take a look at what Christ said was going to take place in Jerusalem. Luke 21. Take it at the 20th verse. All right?
21?
Yeah, Luke 21, starting at verse 20.
St. Luke 21, verse 20. And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh.
So Christ was warning the people. When you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, know that the desolation that was spoken of, know that the destruction is nigh, right? Go ahead.
21. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto.
So Christ was giving them a hint or a sign, to these are what you need to look out for concerning the destruction of Jerusalem. Okay. And we're going to find out that not many people listen to this prophecy. All right, go ahead.
Verse 22. For these be the days of vengeance.
See, Christ was saying that these be the days of vengeance. Okay, go ahead.
That all things which are written may be fulfilled.
See, that all things that are written may be fulfilled. What things that were written that need to be fulfilled? The curse is written up in Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. Okay, there's a lot of prophecies within that chapter alone that had to be fulfilled due to the disobedience of the children of Israel. So due to the disobedience of the children of Israel, there were certain things that they would have to face, like what? Captivity, being scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, right? So read that last verse again. What
22.
Yeah, go ahead. 22.
For these be the days of vengeance.
See, for these be the days of vengeance. Go ahead.
That all things which are written may be fulfilled.
See, that all things that are written may be fulfilled. So you guys are going to have the information today on what were the things that needed to be fulfilled, and what was Christ talking about when he said, when you seek Jerusalem compassed with armies. Right? Go ahead.
Verse 23. But woe unto them that are with child.
See, Christ said, woe unto them in that time that are with child. Right? Go ahead.
And to them that give suck in those days.
Mm-hmm.
For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people.
So you see that Christ said that around that time of the destruction of Jerusalem, there's going to be a great distress in the land. So that means a lot of people will be suffering in the land of Israel. Right? Go ahead.
Verse 24. And they shall fall, by the edge of the sword.
And they shall fall by the edge of the sword. And you're gonna find out that Christ's prophecy was correct. Secular history proves it. Okay, the history of our people prove it. Okay, we had historians back then who left a record for us to be able to examine Christ's word and to see that the prophecies came to pass. Go ahead.
And shall be led away captive into all the nations.
So you see that? So Christ is saying, when you see Jerusalem compassed with army, know that this is when you know that you guys who's remaining in Jerusalem will be carried away captive into all nations. This is going to be the fulfillment of that prophecy, right? What else?
And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles.
See that? And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, giving us key information on who is behind this. It would be the Gentiles that would come in and trodden down and destroy Jerusalem. Right? Go ahead.
Until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
Until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So we know that the time of the Gentile has not been fulfilled. And as you can see right now, in Jerusalem right now, or in Israel, or the certain parts that they consider Israel right now, we see that there are still Gentiles in the land. So that means their time has not been fulfilled. So from the time of 70 AD, okay, till up until this current time, okay, Jerusalem has been under attack, okay, and has been destroyed. And it's not the same Jerusalem from when our forefathers was in it. It's a different Jerusalem now there, okay? So the first piece of information we're going to go into in the first book, we're going to go into to examine this time that was to come, what Christ was talking about. We're going to go into a book called From Babylon to Timbuktu, okay, by Rudolph R. Windsor, okay? And this book, okay, he's a historian in his own right, okay, who was looking for the true Jews. Okay, who put out a record concerning the history of the black race and the black Hebrews. Okay, so now we're gonna go into this book. We're gonna go into the first page. We're gonna go into. If you guys have this book, go into page 84 in the book Babylon to Timbuktu. So now let's hear what Rudolph R. Windsor was saying in this particular chapter. Right? Page 84. Second paragraph. You can just read the second paragraph.
In the year?
Yeah. Right here. No, right here.
Yeah, in the year.
Yeah.
In the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son, Titus, put an end to the Jewish state. So it said in the year 65 BC, right? Mm-hmm. Well, it should be 65 BC. The Roman armies captured Jerusalem. So this is the first part of our destruction, the rise of the Fourth Empire, written in Daniel. We're going to go into that, but continue reading. Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter. Mm-hmm. During the period of the military governors of Palestine, many outrages and atrocities mm-hmm. were committed against the residue of the people. So a lot of atrocities and a lot of bad things was happening to the residue, the people who was left in Israel at that time. A lot of things according to history and according to the prophecies was happening to the children of Israel in the land under the hands of the Romans. Go ahead. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa. How many? Over 1 million Jews fled into Africa. So you see, it's been recorded in history that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa. Go ahead. Fleeing from Roman persecution. Fleeing from what? Fleeing from Roman persecution. See, fleeing from Roman persecution. Okay, so you guys are gonna find out what were the Romans really doing to our people around this time, to have 1 million of our people, flee into Africa, and that should spark some interest in some people's mind. Okay, if the so-called Jews, right, or the ancient Hebrews were Caucasian people, how can Caucasian people flee into Africa to hide from other Caucasians, which is Romans, fleeing persecution? Okay,
So that's a key indicator right there to show you that the ancient Hebrews, they were dark-skinned people that had to flee into Africa to hide amongst other dark-skinned people. All right, go ahead.
Fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery.
See, fleeing Roman persecution and slavery. Go ahead.
The slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves.
So the author says the slave markets was full of black Hebrew slaves, which was our ancestors, our people, right? So this just gave us a little glimpse of the time period, 70 AD, what our people had to face, okay? What was really going on, right? And that was according to the prophecy in Deuteronomy. You can read it right, Deuteronomy 28 and 64. Read that real quick.
And the Most High shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth, even unto the other.
See that? So the Roman Empire coming in and us fleeing, that was part of that scattering of the curse in Deuteronomy 28. Go ahead.
And there thou shalt serve other gods.
See, and there thou shalt serve other gods. Go ahead.
Which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone.
So there we would be serving, once we're scattered, we'd be serving other gods. Lose all sense of who we are. Lose our sense of identity because of this curse. And because of our people fleeing out of Israel, according to the prophecy that Christ gave us, right? Now, let's get into the history, all right? On what was taking place in 70 AD, right? So there's another book we're going to go into. Some of you might not have it, and some of you might have it. We're going to go into the book of Josephus, okay? The complete works of Josephus. So now, who was Josephus, right? You guys are going to find out that Josephus was a Hebrew, okay? He was born, when he was born, his name was Matthias ben Josephus, okay? But then, he had his part in the hands of fighting against the Romans, but the Romans took him in. Because you're going to find out General Vespasian, one of the key figures on our downfall, found Josephus as good value to him. So he was using Josephus. So Josephus around this time was writing a record of the things that was taking place in Jerusalem from the time of, I would say from the time of 65 BC all the way to 70 AD until they left out of Israel. Okay, so he was a Hebrew, he was a priest, so he was of the tribe of Levi, and he also became a priest at the age of 19. All right, and he also became a Pharisee. All right, so you guys are gonna learn some key information from the book of Josephus. So we're gonna go into the Josephus, right? Let's go to page, for those of you who have it, hopefully we have the same book. Going to page 736, right? 736 in the book of Josephus. But we're gonna start at 736. We're gonna start at book 2, chapter 13, the first section 1. Okay, so now, during this time, there was a Roman ruler named Nero. Okay, Nero was a Roman empire. Was a Roman emperor, right? He was born on December 15th, 37 AD, and he died June 9th, 68 AD. Okay, and he was a Roman emperor who succeeded his uncle Claudius. All right, when his uncle Claudius died. So he reigned from the year 54 AD to 68 AD, 2 years before our destruction. And you're gonna find out is that Nero, Roman Emperor Nero, was the one who started the whole taking down of Jerusalem, according to Christ's prophecy, right? And he was known to start what was called in secular history the first Jewish war. We know it's not Jewish, but because of what they're portraying, that they're the real Jews, they name it as Jewish, but it's the first Hebrew-Roman war. Okay, but if you type it in Google, you gotta type in the first Jewish Roman war. Excuse me. Right. So now let's get a little insight on who was this guy Nero? All right, what kind of person was he? Okay. So now I want you to read right here, just a little snippet of this character named Nero, who would be behind the destruction of the children of Israel. Go ahead.
This is book number 2, chapter 13. Was it section 1?
Section 1. Yeah.
Now as to the many things in which Nero acted like a madman, out of the extravagant degree of the felicity and riches which he enjoyed, and by that means used his good fortune to the injury of others, and after what manner he slew his brother and wife and mother, from whom his barbarity spread itself to others that were most nearly related to him.
So you see that? So we see that this character named Nero was a barbarian. As Josephus describes him, this guy, he had no sense of like kindness in him. It said that he killed his own brother and his own mother and his own wife. So this man was a vicious man. And as the story goes along, you're going to find out that Nero hated the Israelites, okay? And that hatred just comes all the way from back in time, from when Jacob and Esau was in the womb. That same hatred just passed on from generation to generation to generation. Now here comes Nero, right? So during this time, before Nero even came to place, the Roman Empire was already ruling. The Roman Empire that was spoken of in the book of Daniel was taking place. So now let's go to the book of Daniel 7 real quick, just some clarity on how this empire came to an existence. This same empire that was prophesied in Daniel before they even came into place, this is the empire that will be responsible for the takedown of the children of Israel centuries later in 70 AD. So go to Daniel 7 and 7, which is where it speaks about the fourth beast in Daniel. Okay. You there?
Just about. 7, yeah. Yeah, 7.
Yeah, go ahead.
Daniel chapter 7, verse 7. And after this I saw in the night visions, and behold a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns.
So you see that? So this beast that Daniel's describing is actually, you're going to find out that it's talking about kingdoms. So this kingdom was very fierce and diverse from all the others. And we're going to go through secular history to show you that this kingdom was responsible for taking down a lot of empires, a lot of different people, including the children of Israel, right? Jump down to verse 23. This is how we know it's speaking about the last kingdom to ever rule. Go ahead. Which is the Roman Empire.
Daniel 7 and 23.
Uh-huh.
Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth.
See, this fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom on the earth. Go ahead.
Which shall be diverse from all kingdoms.
And it shall be diverse from all kingdoms. Meaning there's not going to be a kingdom that's like this beast, or that's like this kingdom. This kingdom, like I said, is going to be responsible for the takedown of a lot of different nations. Go ahead.
And shall devour the whole earth.
And it shall what?
Devour the whole earth.
And it shall devour the whole earth. So at this time, the known world was only the world, or only the parts of the earth that was inhabited by people. And you're going to find out that the Roman Empire was taken down different several locations. What else you got on that? Verse 22.
It says
yeah.
And shall tread it down and break it into pieces.
And shall tread it down and break it into pieces. What does that mean? What does it mean to tread down and break into pieces? Conquering these different nations and separating them in different factions or different cities or different states. All right, after themselves. That's what that's talking about. Look in the book of Josephus. We're in page 768, right? Section 4 in book 3. Look what it says here. Key indication that Daniel 7 is talking about Rome. Go ahead.
And now Vespasian took along with him his army from Antioch, which is the metropolis of Syria, and without dispute deserves the place of the third city in the habitable earth that was under the Roman Empire, both in magnitude and other marks of prosperity, where he found King Agrippa with all his forces waiting for his coming and march to Ptolemais.
To Ptolemais or to Ptolemies. So basically, this section is actually showing that the Roman Empire under General Vespasian was going to attack another location that was already under the Roman Empire, Roman rule. So these are other locations, right? So Daniel the 7th chapter actually explains and goes into further detail about this fourth beast. But we're going to show you, according to the records of Josephus, what they did to us during this time, because they took down all the other nations, the Chinese, the Japanese, and they were in power. And believe it or not, the Roman Empire is still in power right now to this day, right? So now at this time, before Vespasian was chosen by Nero to go into Israel and to destroy the rest of Jerusalem, there was another ruler who was, or I would say a governor, who was written of in the Bible and who we're going to read about in the Josephus, who was over all Galilee or all Judea at this time. Okay, so let's go to the book of Acts 23 so we could see who is this man that we're talking about, and we're going to go into the Josephus to show that the Bible is accurate. And around the time where Felix, or this governor named Felix, was ruling, we're going to read about him in the book of Josephus to show you that this is accurate information. The Bible corresponds with the history that these so-called scholars have of Israel, right? So we're in Acts 23 and take it at verse 24. Go ahead.
The book of Acts, chapter 23, verse 24. And he called unto him 2 centurions, saying, Make ready 200 soldiers to go to Caesarea, and horsemen 70, and spearmen 200 at the 3rd hour of the night, and provide them beasts, that they may set Paul on, and bring him safe unto Felix the governor.
And bring him safely to who?
Felix the governor.
So we see that at that time in the scriptures, Paul was being sent to Felix the governor, who was ruling Judea. So now let's go into the Josephus to see if this is accurate. We know the Bible is true. So now let's go to the book of Josephus in page 735, where it has a record of this same Felix that we just read in the book of Acts. A part of the book of Josephus, right? So we in the book of Josephus, page 734. Book 2, chapter 12, section 8. So read that real quick.
Oh, here it goes. After this, Caesar sent Felix, the brother of Pallas, to be procurator of Galilee.
So to be procurator means to be a governor, an overseer. Same thing like the Bible just said. Go ahead.
Of Galilee and Samaria and Perea, and removed Agrippa from Chalcis unto a greater kingdom.
So you see, so those were the areas that was under Judea, and Felix became ruler over Judea. But now now you're going to see that instead of the children of Israel ruling over themselves, okay, here comes the Romans who come to devour as the fourth beast, taking over land that was already ours. Okay, and the Caesar of Rome put Felix in charge of this area. Okay, so now that we know that Felix is in charge of this area, and Rome already basically had control over Israel at this time, and this is before 70 AD. This is like, I would say this would be around 65 AD or 60 anywhere between 64 to 65 AD, because you're gonna find out that Roman Emperor Nero selects Vespasian and his son Titus to go and subdue the rest of Jerusalem, because at this time they had a certain part, but you guys are going to find out that there was certain gangs, Israelite gangs, okay, that was in Jerusalem that they could not take down for themselves. Okay, and you guys are going to see how it correlates to what's going on to us today. Same thing, right? So Rome is in control of Israel, right? We have Felix, a governor in Judea, right? And we have all the other empires, or we have Nero who's have a certain location in Israel as well, right? So now we're gonna go into what was going on with Nero, and where did he come from, and how did he send Vespasian, okay, to take down the majority or the rest of Israel that was still in the land, right? Josephus, page 748. Go to page 748. Book 2, chapter 17, sections 2. All right. There was a place in Israel called Masada. Okay. And I got a funny story about Masada too. I'll tell you after this lesson. Just please remind me if you remember. Masada was a place just outside of Israel that King Herod, who was Idumea, who was an Edomite, who was under the Roman Empire, who was ruling Judea, a part of Judea at that time, he built a fortress on top of a mount, which was called Masada, right? And it was a stronghold with very high walls. But we're gonna find out what happened in Masada, okay? And what the children of Israel was doing in the land, and how were they able to obtain Masada, and what happened there, okay? So in section, you can read it real quick. Matter of fact, just read it real quick. Section 2 about Masada.
Mm-hmm. And at this time, it was that some of those that principally excited the people to go to war made an assault upon a certain fortress called Masada.
So you see that? So there was a group of Israelites, okay, who band together to fight against the Roman Empire, right? And to overtake this stronghold that was in Masada. You guys are gonna find out that in Masada there was a armory there with weapons. So they had to go in there and take the weapons and to overtake the Roman Empire. Okay? But go ahead.
They took it by treachery.
See, they took it by treachery, meaning they had a crazy plan and they just went in there and overthrew the guards that was guarding Masada. Okay? Go ahead.
They took it by treachery and slew the Romans that were there, and put others of their own party to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, Eleazar, the sons of Ananias, the high priest, a very bold youth, who was at that time governor of the temple, persuaded those that officiated in the divine service to receive no gift or sacrifice for any foreigner. And this was the true beginning of our war with the Romans.
So you see that? So at this point in time, the children of Israel had enough. Okay? They had enough of what was going on in Israel. Okay? The Romans was coming in with their strange practices. They was sacrificing their strange gods on our altars. That was for the Most High. They were sacrificing unclean meat, pigs and all swine, all kind of flesh on our altars, and forcing the children of Israel to partake in that. So at this point in time, there was a group of Israelites who said, you know what? We're not gonna take part in this. We're gonna fight against our enemies. But you're gonna find out these are the same people in this day at this part in time that did not take heed to Christ's prophecy. This is why they was still in Israel, in Jerusalem, dealing with this madness. But go ahead.
For they rejected the sacrifice of Caesar on this account.
See, they rejected the sacrifices of Caesar on this account. Go ahead.
And when many of the high priests and principal men besought them not to omit the sacrifice which it was customary for them to offer for their princes.
Okay, see that? So they forbid them from doing that. They stopped it. So that was causing more of an outrage with the Romans. All right, go ahead.
Continue.
Jump down to section 3.
Section 3.
Uh-huh.
Hereupon the men of power got together and conferred with the high priests, as did also the principal of the Pharisees, and thinking all was at stake, and at their calamities were becoming incurable, took counsel of what was to be done. So now
the high priests and the Pharisees, and we already know the Pharisees at this time was brought off by the Roman Empire. They were working for the Romans. So they came together to find out, like to come up with a plan on how can they stop what's going on. How can we stop the Israelite rebels from revolting from our slave masters, our masters, right? Go ahead.
And that their calamities were becoming incurable, took counsel of what was to be done. Accordingly, they determined to try what they could do with the seditious by words.
So the seditious was that when every time you hear the word seditious in this book, it's talking about the gang that arise, and you guys are gonna find out what's the name of the two gangs that arise. One called the Sakari and one called the Zealots. These were the two gangs that was in Israel that was fighting against the Roman Empire. Okay, but you guys are gonna find out that when they was fighting against the Roman Empire, they were also stealing and robbing and looting from our own people. Okay? You guys are going to find out. These are the people who did not take heed to Christ's prophecy. Go ahead.
And assembled the people before the brazen gate, which was the gate of the inner temple.
See that? So now they assembled all the people in the inner temple to try to see if they could get some kind of resolve. Go ahead.
Court of the priests, which looked towards the sun rising. And in the first place, they showed the great indignation they had at this attempt for a revolt, and for their bringing so a great war upon the country. After which they confuted their pretense as unjustifiable, and told them that their forefathers had adorned their temple in great part with donations bestowed on them by foreigners.
So you see that? So now we have the Pharisees and the chief priests and the elders who are actually, like I said, who was bought off by the Roman Empire, was trying to convince the rest of of those who was trying to revolt, like to convince them, like, look, our forefathers always accepted gifts from the foreigners, so we got to do the same thing. We got to be at peace with these people. So these people were willing to, at this time, the high priests and the Pharisees were willing to compromise their practices or their commands from the Most High to please the other nations. Okay, so you're gonna find out around this time, after Christ's prophecy and Christ is long gone, and the disciples was setting up the churches. You're gonna find out that the people in Israel, they were all off. Okay, from the high priests to the gangs and to the people who stayed behind. Okay, there were some honorable people, but our people was just off. This is why the great destruction came on Jerusalem, as Christ described. Go ahead.
That therefore, which they confuted their pretense as unjustifiable, and told them that their forefathers had adorned their temple in great part with donations bestowed on them by foreigners, and had always received what had been presented to them from foreign nations.
So you see that? So they presented, so they tried to, like I said, try to get a resolve, like to keep the Romans, at peace with them, because they was afraid. Okay, these are the people that's feeding us. These are the people that's giving us our jobs. We can't go against them, right? Jump down to section 4.
Section 4. And as they said these things, they produced those priests that were skillful in the customs of their country, who made the report that all their forefathers had received the sacrifices from foreign nations. But still not one of the innovators would hearken to what was said. Nay, those that ministered about the temple would not attend their divine service, but were preparing matters for beginning the war.
See that? So those who wanted to rebel against the Roman Empire was not listening to the priests, okay, because they knew the priests were bought off. They were not trying to deal with the Romans at this time. They was tired of it. They was tired of being trodden down by the fourth beast. Okay, so now they was coming together to devise a plan. Go ahead.
So the men of power, perceiving that the sedition was too hard for them to subdue, and that the danger would arise from the Romans would come upon them first of all, endeavored to save themselves, and sent ambassadors, some to Florus, the chief of whom was Simon, the son of Ananias, and others to Agrippa, among whom the most eminent were Saul, and Antipas, and Costobarus, who were of the king's kindred, and they desired of them both that they would come with an army to the city and cut off the sedition before it should be too hard to be subdued.
So you see what's happening here? What's happening here right now, since they seen that those who wanted to revolt against the Roman Empire was not listening to them, they said, you know what, let's go to the Roman Empire ourselves and tell them we need y'all here in Jerusalem to police us, because there's gonna be a war. Our people is devising a plan to destroy you guys. So they went to the Roman Empire and told the Roman Empire what was going on, thinking that they was going to be for them. Little did they know they was going to come to destroy all of them. So this is what was happening a little bit before 70 AD. Okay, before Vespasian was sent in to finish off the rest of the children of Israel. Okay, and it's like the same thing now. Our people crying for help. People crying to the Roman Empire right now, to the government of the United States to come and police our streets and save us. But the same people who's policing our streets is doing what? Killing us. And the thing is, they know they can't come outright and just fight against us, because they understand this history. They know what happened to us back then, what we were doing. Okay, our people wasn't standing for this. It's just now all of a sudden our people was just docile. But back then, our people was willing to fight. Okay, even on the left hand side, they were still willing to fight for some kind of freedom. Okay, so now as this is happening now, let's go into the Sakari. All right, I said I'll speak to you guys about them. Go to page 736 real quick.
Going back.
Yeah, going back. I want to show you. I want to show you guys about the Sakari. Okay. How we know that this was the first gang. We in page 736, section 3. Okay. No, page 736, section 3, book 2, chapter 13. Yeah, section 3, chapter 13. Chapter 13, section 3. Right? Go ahead.
An ancient gang. When the country was purged of these, there sprang up another sort of robbers in Jerusalem.
See, they're strong another sort of robbers. So these are our people. Okay? Same thing our people be doing when there's like a hurricane or like during Hurricane Sandy. They be looting, getting gangs. But at this time, at this point in time in Jerusalem, it was getting bad. Okay? The food, you guys are gonna find out that this food supply was being cut off. There was a famine in the land, and while the Romans was devising a plan to destroy us, we were inside of Masad or inside of Jerusalem destroying ourselves. Instead of helping each other, we was destroying ourselves. Go ahead.
When the country was purged of these, there sprang up another sort of robbers in Jerusalem.
See, there sprung up another sort of robbers in Jerusalem,
which were called Sakari.
See, they were called the Sakari. That was the Sakari sect of the Israelites. Go ahead.
Who slew men in the daytime.
See, they was killing people in the daytime. What else?
And in the midst of the city. This they did chiefly at the festivals, when they mingled themselves among the multitude and concealed daggers under their garments.
See, during feast days, they were going in and robbing and killing people. During feast days. This is how corrupt Israel became after Christ's death and resurrection. Go ahead.
With which they stabbed those that were their enemies. And when any fell down dead, the murderers became a part of those that had indignation against them. By which means they appeared persons of such reputation that they could by no means be discovered.
So you see that? So people was just joining this gang because they was overpowering the people in Jerusalem. Okay, that was just a snippet. Let's go. Let's get another part of them. Let's go to page 749, section 6. More of the Sakari. Chapter 17. Let me see where you can start at. Yeah, start up right there. Go ahead.
You got it? And when they had joined themselves, many of the Sakari, who crowded in among the weaker people, that was the name for such robbers as had under their bosoms swords called Sakai. They grew bolder and carried their undertakings further, insomuch that the king's soldiers were overpowered by their multitude and boldness. And so they gave way and were driven out of the upper city by force.
So you see that? So now, at this point in time, the Sakari gang started to rise in Israel. Okay, they became the ones to start the revolt against the Roman Empire. Okay, on the left-hand side, because they were forcing people to join their gang, and if you wasn't with them, they were killing you and robbing you. And it's gonna get worse. We're gonna read where it gets worse. What they started doing to our people. Okay, our own people doing this to each other during this time. Go ahead.
The others then set fire to the house of Ananias the high priest.
So they were burning houses down in Jerusalem. Go ahead.
And to the palaces of Agrippa and Bernice. After which they carried the fire to the place where the archives were reposited. And made haste to burn the contracts belonging to their creditors, and thereby dissolve their obligations for paying their debts. And this was done in order to gain the multitude of those who had been debtors, and that they might persuade the poorer sort to join in their insurrection with safety against the more wealthy.
So you see that? So they was persuading the poor to come and join their gang to overtake the more wealthy in the city, so they could have the power of the city. Okay, this is young people here. Go ahead.
So the keepers of the records fled away, and the rest set fire to them.
Mm-hmm.
And when they had thus burnt down the nerves of the city, they fell upon their enemies, at which time some of the men of power and of the high priests went into the vaults underground and concealed themselves, while others fled with the king's soldiers to the upper palace, and shut the gates immediately, among whom were Ananias the high priest, and the ambassadors that had been sent to Agrippa.
So now you see that a lot of people's afraid now in Israel. Okay, chaos is breaking loose. Okay, the government system of Israel is breaking down. Now we got the gangs taking over now. Okay, they're robbing and killing their own people, still in the street, revolting against the Roman Empire, and actually, winning for some time. But now we're gonna see what the Roman Empire is gonna do. Let's go to Vespasian and his son Titus. Right, he was the emperor from 69 AD up until 79 AD. Okay, one year he ruled 1 year after Nero's death. So now let's go into book 3, page 766, chapter 1, section 1. So now let's see what Nero decides to do, because all this is happening in Israel under his rule. Okay, he's supposed to have the Jews in subjection to him, but the Jews is rising up. Okay, go ahead.
When Nero was informed of the Romans' ill success in Judea.
You see that? So Nero was informed of the ill success of the Romans in Judea. They couldn't control this wild gang, the Sicarii. Okay, they was overtaking everybody. They even overtook the stronghold, Masad, where they was camping. So at a point in time, those people who didn't want to take heed to Christ's prophecy, they thought that they could do it. They thought that they had more power enough to overtake the Roman Empire, but they could not stop prophecy. Go ahead.
A concealed consternation and terror, as is usual in such cases, fell upon him, although he openly looked very big and was very angry, and said that what had happened was rather owing to the negligence of the commander than to any valor of the enemy.
So instead of him blaming what the Israelites was doing, because he didn't want to Nero didn't want to give any credit to the Hebrews. He was like, you know what, it's the negligence of the commanders that I have in place there right now. So what do you think he's gonna do? He's gonna send a new commander. Watch, jump down to section 2. Who he chooses? He's gonna choose somebody to his liking, someone who's just like him, as evil and twisted and sadistic as him, who don't care about life. We're gonna find out who this general is. Section 2. Go ahead. Same chapter.
And as he was deliberating to whom he should commit the care of the East.
See that? Mm-hmm.
Now it was in so great a commotion, and who might be the best able to punish the Jews for their rebellion.
See that? So now he needs to find someone who's gonna punish the Jews for what they're doing. Okay? And this is, mind you, this is about 2 years before 70 AD. It's 2 years before 70 AD. So this is right now, we at 68 AD right now. Okay? So now he's looking for another general who's fierce, who's willing to punish the Jews for what they did to the Romans and what they're doing in Judea, thinking that they're going to overthrow the government. Go ahead.
Now it was in so great a commotion, and who might be best able to punish the Jews for their rebellion, and might prevent the same distempter from seizing upon the neighboring nations also.
So you see that? So he needed somebody who was going to be able to stop the Jews from overtaking all the lands that they conquered already. Okay, go ahead.
He found no one but Vespasian equal to the task.
See, no one was equal but a man named Vespasian. Okay, and Vespasian, like I said, he ruled after Nero's death from about I'll give you the dates right now. He ruled from 69 AD to 79 AD, okay? And he ruled 1 year after Nero's death, and Nero died in 68, okay? So in 69, Vespasian became emperor after he got the okay to go and destroy Jerusalem with his son named Titus. Okay, go ahead.
He found no one but Vespasian equal to the task and able to undergo the great burden of so mighty a war. Seeing he was growing an old man already in the camp, and from his youth had been exercised in warlike exploits.
So you see that Nero understood, and he knew that his time was up. He knew that he was going to die, so he needed somebody to take his place to finish destroying the Jews. Okay, they had to get the Jews out of there, especially the rebels. And like I said, they couldn't do anything that the Most High didn't let happen to them for their disobedience. Okay, right? Go to section 3, chapter. Yeah, section 3, same chapter 1. Okay, because so now we know Nero chooses Vespasian to go and destroy the rest of the children of Israel. This is 68 AD. Go ahead.
So Nero esteemed these circumstances as favorable omens, and saw that Vespasian's age gave him sure experience and great skill, and that he had his sons as hostages for his fidelity to himself.
So you see that? So he knew that his sons would stand behind him and fight with him. So he knew he was going to have the help, okay, of other men who's just like him, evil. Okay, go ahead.
And that the flourishing age they were in would make them fit instruments under their father's prudence.
You see that? Go ahead.
Perhaps also there was some interposition of providence, which was paving the way for Vespasian's being himself emperor afterwards. Upon the whole, he sent this man to take upon him the command of the armies that were in Syria, but this not without great encomiums and flattering compilations, such as necessity required, and such as might mollify him to complaisance. Verse 8. So Vespasian sent his son Titus from Achaia, where he had been with Nero, to Alexandria, to bring him back with him from thence the 5th and 10th legions, while he himself, when he had passed over the Hellespont, came by land into Syria, where he gathered together the Roman forces with a considerable number of auxiliaries from the kings in that neighborhood.
So you see, so Vespasian sent his son Titus to go and gather more men, more legions of soldiers, so that way they can go in and totally wipe out the Jews. Okay, so Vespasian's son Titus went and got men, and they met up, Vespasian's men and Titus' men, and they walked to go and destroy the rest of Jerusalem. But you guys are gonna see that there was some honorable men in Jerusalem at around this time, willing to stand up and fight for what was right. Let's go to chapter 2, the same book, section 1.
Now the Jews, after they had beaten Cestius, were so much elevated with their unexpected success that they could not govern their zeal, but like people blown up into a flame by their good fortune, carried the war to remoter places. Accordingly, they presently got together a great multitude of all their most hardy soldiers and marched away for Ascalon.
So there was a group of Jews who was able to take down one of the Roman generals, and being puffed up, they was like, yo, you know what, we could take the whole army. So they walked and they marched to go get other army, to get the rest of the Roman armies, right? Let's see who they were. Like I'll say verse 11 if you want to say verse, or part 11 in section 1. Go ahead.
This excursion was led on by 3 men.
So these are the name of the 3 men.
Who were the chief of them all? Both for strength and sagacity. Niger, called the Perai.
So there was one of the Jews that was called Niger, and we know that word Niger means black. Okay, it's a Latin word for black. Okay.
Silas of Babylon. And besides them, John the Essene. Now Ascalon was strongly walled about,
No, that's it on that. So there were some good men in Israel fighting for a good cause, right? Besides the gangs. So now we're gonna fast forward now to now Vespasian now conquering different lands in Jerusalem. Mind you, this is still like 68 AD, right? Because in the top of book 3 it says containing the interval of about 1 year from Vespasian coming to subdue the Jews to the taking of Gamaliel. So now this is still within that same year when he was sent by Nero, 68 AD, right? So now we're gonna go to page 773, book 3, chapter 6, section 3. Okay, page 773, book 3, chapter 6, and section 3. Okay, and this is go ahead, continue reading. This is where Vespasian takes Galilee, and we're gonna see how he took Galilee. Go ahead.
And thus did Vespasian march with his army, and came to the bounds of Galilee, where he pitched his camp and restrained his soldiers, who were eager for war. He also showed his army to the enemy, in order to affright them, and to afford them a season for repentance, to see whether they would change their minds before it came to a battle.
So you see, so now Vespasian came and his army, they came around Galilee. Now, instead of them going in straight away and attacking Galilee, they just camped around Galilee so that way, why? The Israelites could see the number of the army. And hopefully they would be, by them being afraid, they would repent and be like, you know what, we don't want no problems with y'all. But we're going to see what happens. Go ahead.
To see whether they would change their minds before it came to a battle. And at the same time, he got things ready for besieging their strongholds. And indeed, this sight of the general brought many to repent of their revolt, and put them all into consternation. For those that were in Josephus' camp, which was at the city called Garis, not far from Sepphoris, when they heard that the war was come near them, and that the Romans would suddenly fight them hand to hand, dispersed themselves and fled, not only before they came to a battle, but before the enemy ever came in sight, while Josephus and a few others were left behind. And as he saw that he had not an army sufficient to engage the enemy, that the spirits of the Jews were sunk, and that the greater part would willingly come to terms, if they might be credited, he already despaired of the success of the whole war, and determined to get as far as he possibly could out of danger. So he took those that stayed along with him and fled to Tiberias.
So you see that there were certain Jews that fled because they was afraid because the number of that army. But there were still some Jews, including Josephus, who stayed because they was willing to fight to the death. So the story goes on. They lose Galilee. Okay, Vespasian took down Galilee. The next place he took down, read chapter 7, the same book. What else Vespasian took?
So Vespasian marched to the city of Gadara.
So Gadara was taken as well. Go ahead.
And took it upon the first onset.
So he didn't have to wait. As soon as they got there, they took it at one time. So now Gadara was taken down. So little by little, the Roman Empire is taking down the residue of the Israelites who was in Jerusalem. Okay, they was just overtaken and just killing and taken by force. Right. Go ahead. What you got there?
Because he found it destitute of any considerable number of men grown up and fit for war.
So you see that. So there wasn't that in this part of Israel. There wasn't that much strong grown men. There was youth there, babies, young men that wasn't fully grown yet. So he took it and killed them by force. Watch, you're gonna see. Go ahead.
He came then into it and slew all the youth.
See that? He slew all the youth. No mercy. Go ahead.
The Romans, having no mercy on any age whatsoever. And this was done out of the hatred they bore the nation.
See that? Out of the hatred that they bore the nation. They hated the children of Israel. They didn't like us. Okay? Go ahead.
And because of the iniquity they had been guilty of it, and because of the iniquity they had been guilty of in the affair of Cestius.
Cestius, that's one of the generals that they took down. Niger and them took them down. Okay, go ahead.
He also set fire not only to the city itself, but to all the villas and the small cities that were round about it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were quite destitute of inhabitants, and out of some of them he carried the inhabitants as slaves into captivity.
So you see that? The beginning of us going into captivity. All right? So it started even before 70 AD. 68 AD. Our people getting taken down and trampled, as Christ said in Luke the 21st chapter. Okay, when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, flee into the mountains. But according to the history and the records of those who stayed in Jerusalem, they thought that they could fight and ward off Christ's prophecy, but they couldn't. Right? So now there was one city that it took them a long time to gain. All right, we're gonna read about this city, Jotapata. Right? Book 3, chapter 7, section 11. The same chapter, section 11, page 776. Right? And take it at verse 11. So this city, it took them long for them to get this city. Okay? But you're going to see how they were able to take the city. And this is the same method that they're going to use to take down Mossad, the last stronghold where the children of Israel would be able to fight before they was taken down, okay, in 70 AD. So this method is the method that they're going to use to take down the rest of the children of Israel, and the same method they're going to use to try to take the rest of us down at this day and age too. And they're doing it slowly. Go ahead.
And now Vespasian was plainly irritated at the great subtlety of this stratagem, and at the boldness of the citizens of Jotapata, for taking heart again upon the building of this wall. They made fresh sallies upon the Romans, and had everyday conflicts with them by parties, together with all such contrivances as robbers make use of, and with the plundering of all that came to hand, as also with the setting fire to all the other works. And this till Vespasian made his army leave off fighting them, and resolved to lie round the city and to starve them into a surrender.
So you see that? So Vespasian noticed that he couldn't just go into this one particular city and overtake them, because all the men in that city was willing to fight, and they couldn't overtake them. Because remember, the children of Israel were stronger than the Romans physically, okay, spiritually at this time. So he had to do it by being smart. So what they did was they laid wait around this city, and they just camped around it and starved them out. So that way, when they're weak, he could go in there and fight them. Go ahead.
And to starve them into a surrender, as supposing that either they would be forced to petition him for mercy by want of provisions, or if they should have the courage to hold out till the last, they should perish by famine.
See, they should perish by famine. So he was trying to starve them out. Okay? And that's one of the tactics that the Romans use. Okay? They use starvation. They use famine. Okay? And it's not by any chance. When we read in the book at 2nd Esdras, it tells you, okay, that there's going to be famines in the last days. Okay? There's going to be people who's going to try to go from one city to the next, but can't, because what? Because of the garrisons that they're going to put up, the walls that they're going to build, okay, to keep those who are in the city trapped, okay. And when you come out the city, what do you think going to happen to you? Killed, the same way that would happen to our people. Go ahead. Where you left off at? Go ahead. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he concluded he should conquer them the more easily in fighting, if he gave them an interval, and then fell upon them when they were weakened by famine. But still he gave orders that they should guard against their coming out of the city.
So you see that? So Vespasian gave his army orders to just surround the city. Make sure none of these Israelites come out. So we're gonna starve them out. And when we know that they're weak and ready, we're gonna jump on them and we're gonna be able to take them down. So eventually, the story goes on. This city gets taken down by Vespasian. Vespasian and his son Titus are just taking down the children of Israel. Okay, so now we're gonna go to what was going on within the city, within the cities that was being taken down through the starvation. Okay, through the lack of food. There was not the Romans was not allowing any food to come in or anybody to come out. No water, no food, no provisions. Now let's see what this made the children of Israel do to themselves. See, and this was the testing ground for what they did, what they're doing to us now. Okay, you guys got to understand that history repeats itself. So we're gonna go to page 862 now. We're going to book 5. Okay, we're going to book 5, chapter 10, section 3. Okay, let's see some of the things. We're not gonna read all of it because this book has a large wealth of information. But I tried to find some of the key things that was going on within Israel to share with you guys, so you guys could see and get an insight of what was really going on, what was happening before we was taken out of Israel, man. And it's sad when you read it. So we in page 862, book 5, chapter 10, section 3. Start at section 3. Listen to this real quick.
It was now a miserable case, and a sight that would justly bring tears to our eyes. How men stood as to their food, while the more powerful had more than enough, and the weaker were lamenting for want of it.
So you see, so who was the powerful? The powerful was the gangs that was rising up. Okay, they was taking all the food from the people who had no arms, who had no weapons. That's what our people was doing to each other in there. They was devouring and killing each other, and the Romans knew that would happen. And now you see that they use this as a testing ground to do to us today. All they got to do is cut off EBT, and our people gonna go crazy. They're gonna start robbing and killing each other. Same thing that they did back then in Israel. They're gonna start doing it now. Watch. Go ahead.
But the famine was too hard for all other passions, and it was destructive to nothing so much as to modesty. For what was otherwise worthy of reverence was in this case despised, insomuch that the children pulled the very morsels that their fathers were eating out of their mouths.
So you see that there was no food that children was trying to take the piece of food from their fathers' mouths, and vice versa. Okay, go ahead.
And what was still more to be pitied, so did the mothers do as their infants.
Look at that. Mothers, instead of them feeding their newborn child, they was eating the food instead of feeding their children because of what the Romans was doing. Sending a famine there, stopping the path of travel for food for them to come in and get in and get out the city. The Romans was doing this strategically so they could go in and destroy the children of Israel while they're weak, because they couldn't fight them straight up while they was healthy. Go ahead.
And when those that were most dear were perishing under their hands, they were not ashamed to take from them the very last drops that might preserve their lives.
You see that? So those who were weak and about to die off, they didn't even, those who still had some kind of strength was taken from those who didn't have no strength, who was just about to die. Instead of feeding that person who was about to die and giving them strength, they was taking it for themselves. Every man for themselves in Israel at this time. Go ahead.
And while they ate after this manner, yet were they not concealed in so doing. But the seditious were everywhere. But the seditious everywhere came upon them immediately.
See, remember, the seditious were everywhere. The gangs, okay, the Sakari, that group of Israelites, the Sakari, they was in Jerusalem, coming upon everybody and taking their food, taking their jewelry, taking their goods, okay, from their own people. Go ahead.
The seditious everywhere came upon them immediately and snatched away from them what they had gotten from others.
So the Sakari was stealing from them what they stole from other people. Okay, go ahead.
For when they saw any house shut up, this was to them a signal that the people within had gotten some food.
You see that? So they knew which houses to go in and attack. Okay, by the way the doors was barricaded. Okay, they knew that something was in there. People was hiding in there. Go ahead.
Whereupon they broke open the doors and ran in and took pieces of what they were eating, almost up out of their very throats, and this by force. The old men who held their food fast were beaten.
Look at that. Even old men was beaten and taking their food from them, was getting their food taken from them. They had no respect of the age or of the young. Go ahead.
And if the women hid what they had within their hands, their hair was torn for so doing, nor were there any commiseration shown either to the aged or to the infants.
See, look at that. Women, children, It didn't matter what you were. Okay, the gangs was taking over Israel at this time. Go ahead.
But they lifted up children from the ground as they hung upon the morsels they had gotten, and shook them down upon the floor.
You see that? Children was being searched for food, thrown down to the floor, and this is the fulfillment of this prophecy. Hold that right real quick and go to the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28 and verse 49, starting at 49. Listen to this real quick. So this is the beginning of this prophecy taking place in Israel right now. Deuteronomy 28 and 49. Go ahead.
The Most High shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand.
You see that? So that was the Roman Empire the Most High would send to the children of Israel. And here we're reading about it in the book of Josephus. What was happening when the Most High did that? Jump down to verse 52.
52. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates.
See that? He shall besiege thee in all thy gates. Go ahead.
Until thy high and fenced walls come down.
See, until thy high and fenced wall come down. You see that? When they camped around certain cities in Israel until they broke it down. There's even parts in this where we might not be able to read tonight, where it shows you that the Roman Empire had a battling ram, which was so big, and they had an iron head on it where they was using men to swing it back and forth and break down the walls. This is written in the book of Deuteronomy, and it's written in the book of Josephus. Go ahead.
Wherein thou trustedest, high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustedest throughout all thy land, and he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Most High thy power hath given thee.
See, go ahead.
They're knocking the door.
Go ahead.
54. So that the man that is tender among you.
53.
53. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and thy daughters.
See, and we was reading that just now. What was happening within the gates of Israel? People eating each other. People eating the last of their food. Okay, go ahead.
Which the Lord thy power hath given thee in the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee.
Go ahead.
54. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil towards his brother.
You see that?
And toward the wife of his bosom.
See, the Most High prophesied what that would happen. So when that gang took the Sicarii and the Zealots, when they rose up, that was written to happen. Okay, go ahead.
And toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave.
See that? So they didn't care. They was destroying their own family members. Right? Go ahead.
55. So that he will not give to any of them the flesh of his children whom he shall eat. Because he has nothing left him in the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates.
So you see, all the way down to verse 57 is the fulfillment, what we're reading right now, of this prophecy right here. Okay, so what we're reading in the book of Josephus was prophesied to happen in the book of Deuteronomy as part of the curses. So it's to no surprise when we're reading this is exactly what was happening, and this is exactly what the Most High was talking about. Where you left off and back in the book of Josephus. Go ahead, finish it off.
But still, were they more barbarously cruel to those that had prevented their coming in, and had actually swallowed down what they were going to seize upon, as if they had been unjustly defrauded of their right. They also invented terrible methods of torment to discover where any food was, and they were these: to stop up the passages of the privy parts of the miserable wretches, and to drive sharp stakes of their fundaments.
So basically, they was coming up with different ways of torturing their own people, just for them to tell them, where the food at? Give me the food. Where's everything at? And they was even doing something even more wicked, where it says they were stopping the passageway of their private parts. They were stopping them from releasing waste. and sticking stuff into them. That's the kind of torture and this addicted and the twisted minds our people was dealing with around this time. Go to section 5. Go ahead.
It is therefore impossible to go distinctly over every instance of these men's iniquity.
So you see that? So Josephus is saying that it's impossible to tell every single thing that was happening in Jerusalem or what these men was doing. Go ahead.
I shall therefore speak my mind here at once briefly, that neither did any other city ever suffer such miseries, nor did any age ever breed a generation more fruitful in wickedness.
So you see that? So that's the most wickedest time and generation of our people was around that time. Okay? What our people was dealing with, what our people was going through, and what they was doing to each other based on disobedience. Go ahead.
Nor did any age ever breed a generation more fruitful in wickedness, that this was from the beginning of the world. Finally, they brought the Hebrew nation into contempt, that they might themselves appear comparatively less impious with regard to strangers. They confessed what was true, that they were the slaves, the scum, and the spurious and abortive offspring of our nation, while they overthrew the city themselves and forced the Romans, whether they would or no, to gain a melancholy reputation by acting gloriously against them, and did almost draw that fire upon the temple, which they seemed to think came too slowly. And indeed, when they saw that temple burning from the upper city, they were neither troubled at it, nor did they shed any tears on the account, while yet these passions were discovered among the Romans themselves, which circumstances we shall speak of hereafter in their proper place when we come to treat of such matters.
So here you go. Okay, there's those of our people who was doing all this, they didn't care about anything. They was burning down the temples and looting and destroying our people before the Romans even come in. Okay? And that's all part of the curse of what was happening and what the Most High described, what would happen to us and what Christ said what would happen to us. Okay? And like I said earlier, those who did not take heed to Christ's prophecy, that's what they had to go through. Okay? So now, let's go to one of the last stages before the final takedown of the children of Israel. When Vespasian's son Titus did the same thing that his father did, okay, to the remainder of the children of Israel that was left in Masad. So now let's go to page 867. Okay, section 3. It would be chapter 12, book 5, chapter 12, section 3. All right, let's see what Titus did. Let me see. Hold on. Yeah, but take it up here. Not. That's it. Yeah, take it up here.
When?
Yeah, when Titus. So let's see what Titus did. What plan Titus was doing to our people to kill them all faster. Go ahead.
When Titus had therefore encompassed the city with this wall.
See, he encompassed the city with a wall. He built a great wall. Another thing they did to our people, they built a wall so they couldn't come in or they couldn't get in or get out, and starve them. Go ahead.
And put garrisons into proper places. He went round the wall at the first watch of the night and observed how the guard was kept. The second watch he allotted to Alexander. The commanders of legions took the third watch. They also cast lots among themselves who should be upon the watch in the nighttime, and who should go all the night long round the spaces that were interposed between the garrisons. So all hope of escaping was now cut off from the Jews, together with their liberty of going out of the city. Then did the famine widen its progress and devoured the people by whole houses and families. The upper rooms were full of women and children that were dying by famine, and the lanes of the city were full of the dead bodies of the aged. The children also and the young men wandered about the marketplaces like shadows, all swelled with the famine.
So you see that? So because of what Titus did, okay, he put up a big wall and a garrison so our people couldn't get out the city. And because of the famine, okay, what he because of that, our people was suffering and destroying each other and dying off. Okay, that's how wicked and evil these people are. They wanted to see us. They wanted to see us suffer before they went in and killed us. Right? Go ahead. What else you got there?
All swelled with the famine and fell down dead wheresoever their misery seized them.
Mm-hmm.
As for burying them, those that were sick themselves were not able to do it, and those that were hardy and well were deterred from doing it by the great multitude of those dead bodies, and by the uncertainty there was how soon they should die themselves. For many died as they were burying others, and many went to their coffins before that fatal hour was come.
So basically, this section, you can read it if you have the book. You can read it. It's basically talking about what Titus did to our people before he went in and slew the rest of the remainder of the people that was in Jerusalem. Okay, so now, for the sake of time, okay, I'll just read one. The Most High sending signs to the people. All right, still allowing the people to have a chance to come out, but they wouldn't take heed to the signs that the Most High was putting. Okay, there's one. Let's go there. Page 889, section 3, real quick. It'll be book 6, chapter 5, section 3. Just read that one part at the end of section 3, real quick.
Thus there was a star resembling a sword, which stood over the city, and a comet that continued a whole year.
So the Most High put a sign in the heaven as a star that resembled a sword, as a sign to warn the people, like, yo, destruction is coming. All right, these people, the Romans that's encamping around y'all, who's guarding y'all, these people are gonna come in and destroy y'all when y'all weak. First they're gonna let y'all destroy each other, then they're gonna come in and do the worst, do the rest. Right? There's even another in this same chapter. There's even another sign the Most High sent. He sent a man to go to and forth throughout the city, saying, "Woe, woe to Jerusalem! Woe, woe to the inhabitants of Jerusalem!" Right? Where it says it right here. It says, "Woe, woe be to Jerusalem, and to all who stay in Jerusalem." And the people, they didn't want to hear it, so the people got that person and they beat him because they didn't want to hear it. That's how wicked our people were. They didn't want to take heed to the signs and the prophecies. Same thing that if they didn't take heed to Christ's prophecies, they sure was not going to take heed to the Most High's prophecies and signs, right? So now let's read the last stand of our people in Masada. Okay, remember in the beginning we read about Masada, the stronghold that the Sicarii, the gang that they overtook. Okay, because after this happened, Titus went in and destroyed the rest of our people, but there was still a stronghold that they didn't destroy, and that was the last stand where our people fell in 70 AD before the cargo ships came for them. All right, in Africa. So this is what happened to the rest or the remainder of those who were in Masad. So we in page 915. Okay. And we're almost done. This is the last stand for our people in 70 AD. 915. Take it as section 2. Yeah, section 2.
For now it was that the Roman general came and led his army against Eleazar and those Sicarii who held the fortress Masada together with him. And for the whole country adjoining, he presently gained it and put garrisons into the most proper places of it.
So after they got into Masada, where Eleazar and the rest of the Sicarii gang was, they was able to overtake them. The same method that they used to overtake all our people. They built a wall, they built a garrison, they starved them out. Then they went in and destroyed them. And after they went in and destroyed them in Masad, he took it back and built up a greater wall, a bigger garrison, right? So that way they can't come back. Go ahead.
He also built a wall quite round the entire fortress, that none of the besieged might easily escape. He also set his men to guard the several parts of it.
See that? So he built a wall around Masad, so that way those who were still inside couldn't escape. And then once they did try to escape, they was getting killed on sight. Go ahead.
He also pitched his camp in such an agreeable place as he had chosen for the siege, and at which place the rock belonging to the fortress did make the nearest approach to the neighboring mountain, which yet was a place of difficulty for getting plenty of provisions. For it was not only food that was to be brought from a great distance to the army, and this was a great deal of pain to those Jews who were appointed for that purpose, but water was also to be brought to the camp, because the place afforded no fountain that was near it.
So you see that? So that was the end result of what happened to the rest of the people in that stayed in the stronghold and tried to fight against the Roman Empire. Go to page 922, chapter 10. Okay? And like I said, there's a lot of information within this whole book. But I tried to skim through a lot and give y'all the meat of what was happening and what was going on in 70 AD for the takedown of our people. So now read chapter 10, section 1, page 992.
When Masada was thus taken, the general left a garrison in the fortress to keep it, and he himself went away to Sisera. For there were now no enemies left in the country.
You see that? So all of the children of Israel was done off. After they built the garrison, they starved the people out. They went in there and they killed all of the children of Israel, and those who couldn't escape. Now they was able to take back Masad. Okay, go ahead.
It being all overthrown by so long a war, yet did this war afford disturbances and dangerous disorders, even in places very far remote from Judea. For still it came to pass that many Jews were slain at Alexandria in Egypt, for as many of the Sicarii as were able to fly thither, out of the seditious wars in Judea, were not content to have saved themselves, but must needs be undertaking to make new disturbances, and persuade many of those that entertained them to assert their liberty, to esteem the Romans to be no better than themselves.
So you see that? So parts of the Sicarii gang that escaped out of Judea, okay, fled into Egypt. Okay, but when they went into Egypt, they started making more noise in Egypt. Okay, and you guys are gonna find out that they were taken. Watch, where you left off at. Go ahead. Keep reading.
And to look upon the Most High as their only Lord and Master.
Okay, but keep reading. Yeah.
But when part of the Jews of reputation opposed them, they slew some of them.
See, still killing out some of our people.
And with the others, they were very pressing in their exhortations to revolt from the Romans. But when the principal men of the Senate saw what madness they were come to, they thought it no longer safe for themselves to overlook them. So they got all the Jews together to an assembly and accused the madness of the Sicarii, and demonstrated that they had been the authors of all evils that had come upon them.
So as we said in the beginning, it was the Sicarii and the Zealots who was responsible for, the Romans coming in and destroying. Okay, because of the insurrection that they started, that they felt like they needed to do. These were the ones who didn't want to take heed to Christ's prophecy. They thought that they were the children of Israel and they could beat all. So they formed gangs, and now the chief priests and those of high esteem came together to accuse them, say, like, you know what, these are they. Now jump down where it says 4:15.
Who being thus apprised of the greatness of the danger they were in, compiled with what was proposed and ran with great violence upon the Sicarii and seized upon them. And indeed 600 of them were caught immediately.
See, 600 of them was caught. Go ahead.
But as to all those that fled into Egypt and to the Egyptian Thebes, or at the best, It was not long ere they were caught also, and brought back, whose courage, or whether we ought to call it madness or hardiness, of their opinions. Everybody was amazed at it. For when all sorts of torments and vexations of their bodies that could be devised were made use of them, they could not get any one of them to comply, so far as to confess, or seem to confess, that Caesar was their Lord, but they preserved their own opinion.
You see that? So when they were all was captured, okay, they were all tortured, okay, if they did not say Caesar was their master. Because remember, these were the rebels. They was not trying to serve under Rome anymore. They was not trying to do anything. They just wanted to overthrow the government. But they were still caught because, like I said, they couldn't escape the prophecies concerning our people, right? So that was the last stand of the children of Israel in Israel, in the land of Israel. The last stronghold was called Masad, okay, where a lot of the rebels went and was doing so much evil. Okay, that's what was happening in 70 AD before a lot of our people ran into Africa, okay, fleeing Roman persecution. One more thing I want to read out of this just to show something. Page 8, going back to page 889, chapter 10. And then we're gonna end it there. Right?
889 or 899?
Sorry, 899, excuse me, yeah. 899, page 899, chapter 10. Go ahead.
And thus was Jerusalem taken in the second year of the reign of Vespasian.
See? So it only took 2 years for Vespasian to take Jerusalem. Right? That's how fast and swiftly they came and destroyed the children of Israel. Go ahead.
On the 8th day of the month of Gorpius, it had been taken 5 times before, though this was the second time of his desolation, for Shishak, the king of Egypt, and after him Antiochus, and after him Pompey, and after them Sosius, and Herod took the city, but still preserved it. But before all these, the king of Babylon conquered it and made it desolate. 1,000.
That was the first time Israel was destroyed. Go ahead.
1,468 years and 6 months after it was built. But he who first built it was a potent man among the Canaanites, and is on our tongue called Melchizedek.
That was Melchizedek, which was Shem. That was Shem who first built Jerusalem or Israel. Go ahead.
Melchizedek, the righteous king. For such he really was, on which account he was there the first priest of the Most High Power.
Shem.
And first built a temple there and called the city Jerusalem, which was formerly called Salem.
See, so the ancient name of Jerusalem was called Salem. All right. Yeah. Okay. It was called Salem. So Melchizedek built it, and then 1,000 years. What was the years? 1,000 after he built it.
1,000.
No, up here.
1,468 years and 6 months.
Months later, it was destroyed by the Babylonians. See that? Well, continue reading. That was the first time it was destroyed. Go ahead.
However, David, the king of the Jews, ejected the Canaanites and settled his own people therein. It was demolished entirely by the Babylonians 477 years and 6 months after him. And from King David, who was the first of the Jews who reigned therein, to this destruction under Titus were 1,179 years. But from its first building till this last destruction were 2,177 years.
So, in total, the amount of time Israel being an established kingdom was how long?
2,177 years.
And 77 years. Okay, from the time Israel was built to the time Titus came in and destroyed it. It stood for 2,177 years. Okay, but don't feel sad or be saddened because this kingdom is coming back, but it's coming back for an everlasting kingdom. Continue reading.
Yet hath not its great iniquity, no, yet hath not its great antiquity, nor its vast riches, nor the diffusion of its nation over all the habitable earth, nor the greatness of the veneration paid to it on a religious account, been sufficient to preserve it from being destroyed. And thus ended the siege of Jerusalem.
See that? So no matter how prestigious this place was, our homeland, no matter how many good things came out of Israel, the gold and silver it had, none of that stuff was gonna stop it from being destroyed, according to Christ's prophecy and the Most High. Okay, so that's what really happened in 70 AD. Okay, now you guys have the information and have the history and the knowledge of how we ended up running into Africa. Okay, what was happening in that time where our people was being destroyed. Okay, now you have that information. Now you can go and teach others and basically have it for yourself, because you know a lot of times we come into the truth and we just say, yeah, I'm Israel, we Israel, yeah, we know Israel, but we don't know the history of why we Israel or how we became slaves. Here's the history. Here's the beginning of our downfall. Right there in 70 AD, written in secular history and in the Bible. Okay? Can't be disputed, can't be refuted, and can't be ignored. Okay? So now you guys have the history. All right? So, you know, we're going to move into the next phase of